Let's go to the Middle East now. The latest news we have is that Israeli troops are still surrounding the West Bank towns of Jericho and Jenin. It follows a night of fierce fighting in both areas. At least 3 Palestinians were killed, others were wounded. Elsewhere in the West Bank, an Israeli settler was shot dead in an ambush by Palestinian gunmen. The Palestinians accuse Israel of intensifying the action against them, while the world's attention is focused on the events in the US.
Israeli troops on the move again, this time around the oasis town of Jericho, close to the Dead Sea. This was the first place to be given over to Palestinian control under a peace agreement reached 8 years ago today. But that's long buried here now, as Israeli troops step up their military pressure on the Palestinians. They fought back. Exchanges of fire left some wounded and parts of the town burning. The Palestinians accuse Israel of exploiting the world's focus on America to broaden its fight against them. And Israel says it is toughening its approach. In the early hours of yesterday, Israeli troops came here into the very centre of Jenin, sparking strong resistance, scenes that were repeated overnight. But the casualties weren't all on the Palestinian side. This was the aftermath of another attack, an ambush by gunmen on an Israeli woman settler. Many shots were fired. The latest military escalation has brought new calls from Washington for restraint. In the wake of the devastating attacks against them, the Americans are urging both sides here to learn the appropriate lessons and return to the negotiating table soon. Caroline Hawley, BBC News, Jerusalem.
Well, many in the Arab world believe Israel is profiting from those attacks in the US. And for more on that, I'm joined from Cairo by our correspondent, Frank Gardner. So, Frank, there's a sense again that Israel has the advantage.
That's right. There is this widespread fear throughout the whole Arab world that Israel will use the terrible tragedy on Tuesday to basically crush the Intifada, the Palestinian uprising, while the world is not really looking, and hoping that the world will perhaps turn a blind eye. The Israelis already made it clear that they're going to take a tougher line against the Palestinians. The Israelis have been quite successful in managing to equate acts of Palestinian violence with what happened on Tuesday, talking about all joining together. Benjamin Netanyahu, for example, who is not in power but as the former Israeli Prime Minister, was able to kind of put this up on put the West and Israel up on a sort of plateau, and saying that Islamic terrorism must be crushed. I think all Arabs are feeling that they are being unfairly stigmatized, that even if the perpetrators of Tuesday's attacks are found to be Arabs and Muslims, that doesn't mean to say that a whole billion Muslims in the entire Arab race should then be stigmatized.
Would you say that the area is bracing itself for some kind of attack? Of course, Afghanistan is the area which everyone is looking at the moment, but is there a sense in the Middle East that there might be something unexpected too?
There is, yes. I mean, last time in '98, when the US fired cruise missiles at Sudan as well as Afghanistan, there were demonstrations because people felt that, well, Afghanistan was relatively distant, but that Sudan was unfairly hit. And indeed, in fact, the cruise missiles hit the wrong target. And at the time, the United States was accused of what they call the Monica missiles, of distracting attention from the Monica Lewinsky scandal. It's different this time. I think a lot of people expect retribution by the United States, but they're very worried that innocent Muslims are going to be targeted alongside those who are perhaps guilty.
Frank Gardner, thanks so much for joining us from Cairo.